Welcome to the National Parents Union presents Speak Your Truth with yours truly, Vivett Dukes. How is everybody doing tonight? I hope that you are all doing well. It's a lovely day here in New York. I'm thoroughly enjoying every day of my summer time away from the actual day-to-day with students, although the work in that regard has not ended. Especially with us in this, vein of reimagining our schools and what that looks like and what that impact is going to have not only on our students, but on their families, on the educators, administrators, just our communities overall. And tonight we have two guests that, as I said to them in the green room, they are unlikely guests to be on the same show. However, they are both guests that have children and the best interest of children at their heart, at the core of who they are. And both people I have gotten to know very well over the course of time. For those of you who have been regular participants in our show and viewers of our show, first of all, I thank you so much. We thank you so much. For your continued support, for coming on and watching us every Monday and Thursday. And we try to always have guests on who really can talk about what's happening in the pulse of whatever their sphere of influence is. Tonight, I'd like to introduce you first of all to Mr. Lawrence Bartley. Can we get Lawrence in here? Hi. You're on mute.
How are you?
I'm doing well, Lawrence. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having
Good to see you. Always good to see you.
Likewise.
I haven't told our viewers anything about how we know each other. I thought you might want to share that story. I have many stories about the impact you've had on my life. Every so often I try to tell you the impact you have. One particular thing you shared with John that he shared with me that really helped me through one of the most harrowing times in my life. But I'd really like for you to just share with our viewers how we know each other and a little bit more about who you are.
Well, we know each other from a good friend, John, who is your husband, has been a friend of mine for over a decade. He's also my colleague currently, and when you two got together, he talked to me a little bit about it. I gave him some advice, which I'll have you share it if you're comfortable with. I don't know how much you're comfortable with. That's rather personal, but you're like a sister to me, and I really appreciate you as well as my brother John. And it's always a pleasure occupying any space with you two, like I am now.
Likewise. So, as our viewers know, if you've been following Speak Your Truth, you know that there was a point in time where my husband was incarcerated. During that time, Lawrence was also incarcerated. That's how they know each other. And so I actually know Lawrence's wife from being an educator as well. So when I saw him there, it was like, wow, what are you doing? How are you? But over time, going up to the prison became like very daunting. It was very stressful. I was getting beaten down and I was contemplating really not going further in the relationship with John, because although he was and still is a really wonderful man, the surroundings were getting to me, the physical surroundings. And I shared that with John, and in some way John shared that with Lawrence, and your advice to him that John sent back to me was, do not focus on the barbed wires, do not focus on the bars, do not focus on any obstacle. Set your intention on why you are coming up here, which is to see your man, John Dukes, and you stay focused on that. And you focus in on that love, and you just hone in on that and literally put the blinders on to everything else, and you'll be all right. Now, at that time, Lawrence had been going through his journey with his family for much longer than I had been. And that bit of information helped me so much because I literally, Lawrence, when I would be going through processing, repeat those words in my head. Put on your blinders, don't look at them, just focus on why you're there. And you helped me through like I was in the last like 2 years of that bit. That was my mantra. Yeah,
That's cool. That's cool. It's humbling to hear that. That's cool.
You helped me a lot.
Welcome.
And I make a point of when we have guests of just like what they did, how we're connected, because we're all connected. I make a point of sharing these stories because you never know what you're going to do or say to a person that's going to impact them, that can totally shift their thinking, can shift their mindset. I don't think you knew when you said that the impact that it would have on you. Didn't even say it directly to me, but yet your words had that impact on me. So yeah, thank you.
I'm glad it did. Y'all make a wonderful couple. And look how many years you've been going strong. Y'all too.
I know, right? 5 years. It's really great.
Excellent.
It's gone by quickly. Speaking of which, he's here now. Are you coming in now?
Yes,
Look
I'm
who's here.
I gotta see Lawrence.
We talked him up.
I gotta see Lawrence.
Hey.
Hey, brother.
How you doing, sir?
All good.
Thank you for coming on. Good to see you, man.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I always appreciate being in the presence of you too, as I was telling Vivett. So this time is no different.
Yes.
Thank you, brother.
So
even though I'm working right now, you still have me working. I'm on the clock still. Hey, go ahead.
Get that money, brother. Get that money.
Listen, this is what it's about.
Oh, you jumping right in. Go ahead, just jump right in. Just do it. Just do it. Jump right in.
This is what it's about.
That's right.
This is what Lawrence and I do. But this is Lawrence, baby.
Oh, really?
I assist at the Marshall Project. But,
Lawrence, tell us about. We haven't really even.
Yes,
talked about
I know. I had to shout that out.
Right. So, would you like to tell us about this publication that John has shared? He did share earlier that you both work together, but if you'd like to tell us about the Marshall Project and the work that you do there.
Well, currently I'm the director of News Inside for the Marshall Project. The Marshall Project is a nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization that focuses on the criminal justice system in this country. And I began working for the Marshall Project a little over 2 years ago. But my journey with the Marshall Project started when I was going through my parole board experience. As Vivett told you, I was incarcerated. And I went to the parole board 5 times in a period of 7 months, which is not the norm. My parole experience was really tough. I was incarcerated since I was 17, and I did 27 years. So since the first day I got in there, all I could dream about is getting out. When I finally got my opportunity to go before the parole board, they really put me through it, and they didn't want to let me out. But through a series of appeals and do-overs because of ties in the decision, I was made to go to the parole board 5 times in 7 months. And a friend of mine at that time asked me to write down my story. And at that time, I didn't want to write down my story because it was very personal for me. I was going through it. And not only did I have myself to think about, I had my family to think about as well. And this decision, their hopes was hanging on this decision. But after thinking about it for a while, I thought that if I could write my story down for someone who may not be as articulate as I am, I can get that story out for that person. So maybe other people won't go through what I went through. So I wrote it down, and the Marshall Project published my story. And luckily, I won my release or earned my release through parole board and won it through the decision. And I was released about 30 days after that published. And then the Marshall Project invited me in to discuss all the nuances about parole from my perspective. And after that discussion, they offered me a job there. And I happily accepted. But while I was there, I realized that although the Marshall Project reports on criminal justice news, they were public facing because all of our work was on the internet. And incarcerated people do not have access to the internet. So I spoke with a few of my colleagues, and I came up with this idea to put our material into print, and I pitched it to the Marshall Project, and they happily accepted. But during my pitch, I promised them if they would allow me to go forward with this, I would get our work into at least 10 states and 20 facilities in a year's time. And luckily, luck was on my side. And within a year's time, we're in over 38 states and over 500 facilities.
That's right. And counting.
And counting. And counting.
Wow. So because one of our missions here at the National Parents Union and at Speak Your Truth, like how this merger happened, is because Speak Your Truth has been very instrumental in making sure that the National Parents Union includes the voices of parents who are either formerly incarcerated or who are returning citizens, who know what it is to go through the plight of incarceration as a parent, because that's an often overlooked population of parents, because the assumption that I found is, well, if a person's incarcerated, they don't care about their child, or there isn't much thought about the children that may be going through this incarceration also. Mm-hmm. So as a parent who was incarcerated, what was that journey like of being a dad while being behind the wall?
Well, I have 3 children. I have a daughter who's an adult, and I have 2 boys. One is 12 and one is 7. My daughter was born 7 days after my incarceration began. And throughout her incarceration, it was really tough, not only for me, it was tough for her because she obviously didn't have a dad around. But I haven't been like anyone who, or maybe people might perceive that people incarcerated or selfish didn't think about their children. I thought about my daughter every day I was in there, and it was hurting me that I couldn't be there for her, nor could I see her. I saw her on average maybe once a year, and I didn't put that on anybody. It wasn't anybody's responsibility to take the $60, $70, $100 that they have out of their checks and the 2 days it would take to get to me, because it takes about 7 hours to get to me for then a 5-hour visit, then 7 hours back. That's 2 days out of their life in order to get to me, and most of that is on the road. And I know that's an arduous task, so I didn't blame anyone for not bringing my daughter to me, but it hurt nonetheless not seeing her and not being able to stamp her personality with whatever influences I can provide. But for those who don't know, in prison, especially particularly in a New York State prison, one could make as little as 10 cents an hour. So to have a prison salary, most people, spend that money on things they can use in order to survive while there, little soups, little soap, little toiletries, etc. But I always put aside a portion of whatever I made to save up so I can buy my daughter something on her birthday or during the holiday time, at least once a year, something that was meaningful. I would get money from friends and family members once in a while, but that's nothing that I could depend on. Whatever I got, I always save a portion. I put it to the side, and I always send my daughter a box every year. And because of that, and because she knows that I always wrote her and I always tried to get to her as much as I can, our relationship endured. And even when I came home, our relationship is still strong to this day. Mm-hmm. But New York State is one of 4 states that allows family reunion visits. That's visits where a person can spend up to 52 hours with their spouses or family members alone in like a modular home. They used to call them trailers, but they're not. And they call them family reunion visits, which is a euphemism for conjugal visits. Right. So during that time, I was married, I had a relationship with my wife as Ronnie, her name is Ronnie, as Vivett spoke about at the top of my talk. And, we were able to have children during our time we spent, and I have 2 boys. And what different with Ronnie is that Ronnie brought my children to see me at least once a week for the last 14 years of my incarceration. Well, she came once a week for the last 14 years of my incarceration, but during that time, my sons were born. So throughout their lifetime, they don't know going 2 weeks without seeing their dad was unheard of. And I was able to have a relationship with them. And it was tough, it was abnormal, but being in the system for so long, the system became my normal. And Raneen being my partner, our interaction and way we raise our children was heavily impacted by the system, from what clothes she can wear to come visit me, what clothes my children can wear. And that became our norm as well. And we always had something to look forward to, whether it was our visits on the weekends, whether it was in the summertime when the children's center opened, the kids could play there, or whether it was our family reunion visits. So, and I tried to make it as best as I could. On 2 occasions, my family reunion visits fell on Halloween, and I remember taking plastic bags and aluminum foil in order to make costumes for my children, and bringing candy that I bought from the commissary and handed it out to each of the men in the other 5 units on the family union ground, and telling them, listen, when my kids knock on the door and say trick or treat, just give them some of this candy. So I did stuff like that in order to let my children know that I love them and continue our relationship. But although I'm painting the picture as if it was something good and pleasurable, it was to a certain degree. But I don't want people to believe that prison is fun, having visits are fun, or conjugal visit is a wow factor. But it's not. But I just want to impart to you that I did the best I can with what I was given.
Yeah, and what I take away from what you say, that others who may not be parenting via incarceration, but who are parents nonetheless, is parenting is an intentional act. That no matter what your circumstances are, it is your duty as a parent to ensure that you are in your child's life to the best of your ability. And so between you and your wife, Ronnie, and I have to bring her up because she is your partner in this, your parent in this. That union, that parenting is what our children need. Whether you're together with as partners, as parents, or if you're co-parenting separately, you have to come together on one accord for the sake of the children. Your sons are one of the most fun-loving, beautiful children, young boys that I know as an educator and can say that to you. But I have seen the shift in them from seeing them in the prison visiting room and observing them, and now being able to observe them with having their dad home. Especially your younger son, he used to be very, and he still is very, because he's just tough like that, and nobody messes with him, not even me. I'm low-key scared. When I see like a rejuvenance and a happiness about him that I know I attribute to you being home. I have my dad. Yeah. You know, and it's just beautiful. I want to bring in our other guest. She's actually commenting in the chat because she's hearing all of this. And Monet Cooper, she wants to get in on the conversation. My fellow educator.
Come on in.
Joining us from Georgia. So we have New York, we have Connecticut. So we're doing a tri-state thing, but then we brought in down south. We shifted to Georgia. Hey, Georgia. You're on mute. You're on mute, yeah.
Oh, my bad. I said, hey.
Hey. How you doing?
I'm well. You know, I'm going to claim you as a Southerner too, Vivett, because you asked how I'm doing. Like, that's what we do. We're like, how you doing? How's your family doing? How's your dog doing? Everybody. Then you, like, 30 minutes later, then you get to talking. I'm just, so grateful for you all being so willing to share your story. I think there's a very intentional part of incarceration where people who are incarcerated are kept separate from everyone. So we don't know, those who are outside really don't know what's going on. And Lawrence, you spoke to the difficulty of just accessing the space for your wife, the ways in which those who enter are also policed. And that's not just a physical act, that's emotional, that's psychic. So, thank you so much. The other thing I wanted to say was, I heard you talking about luck with your paper. I'm like, that's hard work. That's genius. That's intentionality. That's not just luck. That's not just something that fell in your lap. And that's such a beautiful story. And I hope you I not only, I hear you writing about it, but I hope you, publish a book. Both of you publish a book. I mean, these are Black stories. These are our stories. And it's not just resilience. It's also about a very intentional system that seeks to oppress and dismantle Black people, Black families, Black men, Black women. So, I think we need to hear those things so that we who are also outside can be active and engaged, because when we know, we become responsible. And so now I'm responsible, right? Like, so now I know, now I'm responsible. I had a question, Lawrence, is, how we talk about freedom dreaming and we talk about all this, like, brother, you were doing it. And so I would love to know, how did you maintain a relationship with your son, or how did being incarcerated affect that relationship? And how did that relationship change when you left prison?
Well, I maintained a relationship because of my wife. If it wasn't for her, it would have been almost impossible. They'd have been hearing me over the phone, and that wasn't as impactful as it was when they would see me on the visits and see me in the family union visits. During the visits and the family union visits, they were so psyched up, like during the week, like, I'm going to see Dad. And the family union visits, the modular homes are red. So my kids, we wouldn't call it family union visits. We would say, we're going to the red house, going to see Dad in the red house. So when they were really young, they thought that I lived in the red house. I tried to explain it to them, but they couldn't get the bars and all that, because I try not to lie to them, but they would always say, well, you live in the red house, that's where you live. But we always had something to look forward to. So I was attached to them looking forward to something. So it was always joy when they came around me. So sure, there were times where I had to be a disciplinarian, because my wife would say, listen, this happened and I can't deal with this. You need to talk to your son. And then sometimes I would put my foot down and I would say what I need to say. But, while it was in my face, they would be like, you're right, Dad, I ain't gonna do it. All right, I'm sorry, or whatever. So it worked out. But transitioning into how it was when I got home, when I got home, they were super happy. They were looking forward to that too. When they finally got me home, it was like, wow, boom, bang, my dad is here. It's a whole different element. Like, my son was saying, I can't wait till Dad come home because he brings the action. My 2-year-old says that. So when I came home, I kind of brought the action. It was just like crazy. I felt like a bad dad for a while, because they was out like for the first year after 12 o'clock at night, going to places with me. I was trying to do things to get on my feet, and bringing them along to see people. I wanted to be with them, because even being out and seeing friends and people on the outside, I wasn't exactly home unless I was with my family. And I just like to be around them. And I'm still like that to this day. COVID has been a blessing to me. I know it's been horrible in a lot of different ways, but the fact that I'm around my family much more has been such a super blessing. But anyway, when I first got home, part of it was a little bit difficult, because they were used to their mom being a sole disciplinarian, and they were used to always sleeping in their mom's room. But I'm here and like, oh, now we got to go in our room. Nah, Dad, man, what you doing? So they was a little bit rebellious, a little bit. So it was kind of tough. And then, when I would yell at them, and sometimes they would be like pop and mess back, like, nah, I ain't gonna do that already. But after a while, that simmered down. So now it's like when Dad put his foot down, they know they in trouble. They get that look in their eye, like, So I try to I just try to be a dad. I try to balance my wife out, and like my son was mad at me the other day. I'm like, you mad at me? I'm such a horrible dad. Why? Because I make you eat all your food. I make you clean up after yourself. I make you work out every day. I make you read once in a while. I mean, I don't let you play video games till 4 or 5 in the morning every time you want. That's why I'm a bad dad. When you get older, you're gonna thank me for the things I'm doing, because you are in shape and your mind is flexible. Yeah. So remember that. So, they sometimes it's not as perfect as I would like it to be, but at least from their perspective, because they want everything in a kid's way. They want everything, but it's all good.
What is real and what you bring to this conversation, what John brings to the conversation, is like this is another level of family, of parenting that we don't see this represented. We don't see this in the media. We don't hear about families where a parent is incarcerated that are thriving despite the circumstances. We don't hear about the love stories of how families are fighting to stay together. You didn't see what your sons and wife went through to get to you. I saw them. Your wife used to drive me up there before I had a car to drive up and see John. And one thing she always did, you're right, is make it exciting. They were excited to see that and excited for me to come. Like, hey, you coming too? Who are you coming to see? Right, but someone had to frame it like that for them.
Right.
How we frame scenarios for our children is very important. Obviously, it was your wife who did that. And she also made it like, wherever your father is, this is your father. You respect your father, even so much as to how they dress. Making sure the face is cleaned up, the hair is cut, the everything, even whatever they went through before and they had to take off this or switch that, because clothes in prison is a lot. They give you a lot of slack about what you wear, as you mentioned earlier. But I saw how Ranin just kept it together and adapted and had it where even putting your hand under the light before you get in, it was like, hey, it was like a game almost, where she framed it in a way where for kids, like you told me, we're just focused on seeing our dad. Just focus on the loved one you have inside.
I would like to interject on the framing part, because it made me think of like when you're in the pool, when you go to a public pool and they put a stamp on you for children. A lot of them, I mean, they do it for adults too, but a lot of the children have to go back, see the glow in the dark stamp to make sure that they paid. Why I bring that up is because a lot of times what I used to do with, and this is not even just with children, this is just framing it for adults, for anybody that came to see me. They would be like, oh, huffing and puffing about, oh, I gotta go, it's big line, it's this. I said, listen, you're coming to see your favorite entertainer. You get a chance to take a picture with me. You get a chance to interview me. You'll stand on the line all night for a concert or for a movie. So why not for someone that you can see, touch, and really, they know you.
Good
point. I
point.
would say that just to take their mind, because perspective is really what you and Lawrence is bringing to the table right now. The perspective is really what you have to give a person to really appreciate and to really understand what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that.
I want to bring the conversation back around because I feel like we jumped over the publication news inside. And one thing so can you talk to us about how often the publication comes out, whose stories are included?
You have the women's edition.
I have the women's edition right here. Well, sent to the women's prisons, right? Oh, so why'd you say the women's edition?
No, I'm saying that because there's a lot of women on this particular.
We just highlighted women in that issue.
Oh, okay. But who's included in this publication? This is through the Marshall Project. Kind of talk it up a little bit so that people can, learn more about it.
Well, the Marshall Project is as I explained before, but what I didn't mention that Marshall Project we are the youngest organization to ever win a Pulitzer Prize, and we came in first, and I believe our first year of existence, but we came in second, like on 2 different occasions. So Marshall Project wins a lot of awards for the work that we put out. So providing award-winning journalism specifically tailored to incarcerated people is a plus. The 80% of stories are written by our, did we lose her?
I think so. That's okay, we could get her back.
Okay, 80% of the stories are written by our reporters, but 20% of the stories are written by people who have been directly impacted by the criminal justice system. There are people who write from all over the country. They write pieces and they get published. Those pieces get published on our site once a week at minimum, but as of for the last 3 or 4 months since COVID hit, we've been publishing those pieces at least twice a week. But I select some of those pieces to whatever fit the News Inside's theme for the particular issue, and I put it in News Inside. The publication comes out 3 times a year. And what's different between this publication and others that usually talk about the criminal justice system is that we all know the criminal justice system is horrible. It treats people terribly, particularly people of color. And there's some need for it in some way, but our power has been abused, and many people believe power has been abused, much as you see with what's going on with George Floyd and what's going on in the country as an example of that. But what News Inside does, instead of feeding incarcerated people the negative information about the system that they already know, although some of that stuff is important, I try to feed them with positive information, uplifting stories about people like them, and about the systems, like different changes in the law in which some of them can use in order to get themselves out of prison if they were prosecuted incorrectly. I give them hope. Like there's in one state, the juvenile lifers who was sentenced to life when they committed their crimes when they were under 18, but a series of Supreme Court decisions stated that their mind wasn't fully developed. Therefore, they should have a reasonable opportunity to expect release. So in Pennsylvania, where they had housed all these people who committed these crimes when they were under 18, they've been in prison for 10, 20, and 30 years. And because they was gonna be there forever, they didn't give them any positive programming. They didn't feed their mind. They didn't get them ready to be reintroduced and reacclimated into society. But once those Supreme Court decisions hit, they said, all right, we have to do something to prepare this population and go back out there. So what they did was they got these virtual reality goggles and they gave it to the people inside. And once they put it on, they can learn how to cook a hot dog in a microwave. They learn how to go shopping. They learn those little things. And I know from my experience being a juvenile who was adjudicated and went to prison with life on the back of my sentence, I knew how powerful it would have been for me to put on a piece of technology to take me out of the world I was in, to see the world that I always dreamed of for so many years. And one of the individuals who we quoted in the story, he had put on the shopping goggles about him, the goggles, and it showed him how to shop. And when he took it off, he had tears streaming down his face. And he said, I wonder what else had changed in the world. You know, so I knew how important that was. So I put stories like that in News Inside to give people hope and give people ideas. If we don't have if they don't have programs like that in their facilities, they can show the prison administrator, hey, look at this in News Inside. You need to bring that here. You know, so that's my hope.
That's incredible, man. I mean,
yeah, please, because we're trying to get Monet back on.
I wanted to add to, you know, a little bit what you said about giving a person that opportunity, you know, that exposure to see how it is. Because I remember working on a trailer, on what we call the trailer FRP, Family Reunion Program. And when there were people that, men, they would come in, grown men, and one would think like, you have to know how to work this or operate, you know, not only a microwave, but remote control, because the televisions have changed. And a lot of men would ask whether it was me, the person that worked there, or if it was you, if you were there participating, oh, could you come to my unit, which we call them units, you come to my unit and check the remote, could you show me how to operate the DVD? Could you put it in for me, like before my wife come or before my children come? And it really made people feel sort of like helpless at times, where they wanted to be empowered because they felt helpless if they didn't know how to do it, where their people would come in, especially their children came in, it's like, Dad, you don't even know how to do this? Like, you know, you can't go past the red line when you're in the visiting area where you can't do the vending machine to make the food. Now you can't even, you're able to touch a remote or the microwave, and you can't even operate that. Like it it says something to what, well, let's say this speaks to something that this conversation it has to be dealt with the way you presenting it. That's what I would say. The way you present it by placing it in our publication and giving people something not only to just read, but to constantly think about those that are higher ups to say, you know what, we, like you said, we need to bring this program or we need to do these things here because men are coming out literally not having the basic fundamentals, and women coming out with having not the basic fundamentals on how to navigate through a technology of, let's say, society.
Right.
You know?
I agree wholehearted. And I was one of those people. I didn't know how to operate the remote control, and I felt so helpless, and I felt like, dang, man. But I feel you there. Definitely feel you there.
I just want our viewers to know, Monet, as I mentioned, she's in Georgia. They're having thunderstorms there, and the thunder knocked her internet out. That's why she just left it. So she's trying to get back on. But if she's not able to get back on tonight, we will have her on again at another time. She texted and apologized. She was thoroughly enjoying the conversation. She looked like she was ready to go Oprah on you, Loris. I think you dodged the bullet there, sir.
I hope she come back. I love it.
You may have to come back because she has questions.
I'm here. Call me back.
You know what I want to get back to. I think this publication is just miraculous. First of all, I think both of your lives are miraculous that you're both here in this setting. And I think, as you said earlier, I'm glad you did say it, Lawrence, that when you're in something, you're kind of just going through it and you're just making do, doing the best that you can. But between the two of you right now is almost a 50 years worth of incarceration. That I am sitting next to and looking at. We need to just kind of sit with that for a minute to really understand when we talk about what incarceration does, how it separates families, how its real function as it stands is to tear people down and families down, not build them up. If it were not for just our tenacious spirits and our desire to keep going, it's really nothing that the system is doing to support that. But it takes publications like this really speak to all the human capital, the human resources that are just locked away, that our society is in such great need of, and whose voices are stifled. You know, one of the really big reasons why we started Speak Your Truth was to give voice and agency and a platform for people who are incarcerated. I remember, you know, John would ask guys inside, like, hey, write a letter, we can post it on Facebook. They're like, Facebook? But they were so excited, like, oh, hey, Vivett posted it. Oh, my wife could see it. I told my mom to go log in to see it. This is something tangible. Like, this is a gift. You know, like, just look at, show your copy. I know you have copy.
I'll pull out. This is one of our latest issues. This is issue 4. Issue 5 is getting ready to come out, but this is the current issue that's out now.
Okay.
And what I wanted to mention about this is that there are, right now, we're in the time of, you know, COVID-19, and, you know, you would see right now, we publish many stories that there's jails and there are prisons that people are literally shaking the bars and calling attorneys, and attorneys are petitioning governors and parole boards to let people out, because a person could have a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 20, 30-year sentence, and they dream about getting out, but COVID-19 has turned those sentences into death sentences. We do a coronavirus tracker every week, and in the week of June 30th was our last one that came out. We're going to do another one that's going to come out tomorrow. But speaking about last week's, coronavirus cases in prison has spiked to over 52,000 people, and across the country. From what had been reported, 616 people have perished due to COVID-19. and there's no way to social distance in prisons because those who live in the dorms, the cots are 6 feet apart from each other. Those who are in cells, the cells are right next to each other, upstairs and downstairs, and there's no walls covering 4 walls. One wall is all bars. So if someone coughs or sneezes, that can infect someone else. I saw a study that just was done 2 days ago, and on the news, they had someone cough, and they tested the droplets in the air, and those droplets remain in the air for 12 minutes. So people in prisons are really in trouble, and they feel helpless and they felt invisible. So with this issue, what we did, the issue before that, we surveyed the incarcerated population about their political views. And that was something that was never done on a scale that we done it. So to put it in perspective, the national political polls that you may see on TV, they have about 1,000 respondents. But for us, John will tell you, he did a lot of the input, he did majority of the input than anyone else. That's why his name is in it, each story. They had over 8,000 respondents before we published. You know, at the time of publishing, we have way more now, 8,000 respondents, which shows you that there are people across the country that really wanted to let their words be heard. They wanted to get out there. And if you look at, we dispelled a lot of myths about the way people who are incarcerated would vote. Usually people incarcerated, they vote just like people out here along racial lines. For instance, one of the questions we asked, like, what are the biggest issues facing the country today when it comes to criminal justice? And the white respondents, majority of them said that they feel that prison sentences are too long. But the black respondents, they said that racial injustice is the biggest disparity, is the biggest problem in this country. And right now with what's happening with George Floyd and what's going on new, we are seeing that people are really starting to believe us, or people are really saying enough is enough and not looking for the government or states to step in to do the right thing. People are demanding change, because even during the time of COVID-19, I mentioned that some states and jails are releasing people, but the statistics show that the people they are releasing are majority white people. The people who they're releasing the less are majority black people. Even when it goes down to juveniles, to adults, to prisons, to jails, the disparity still continues over and over. We get the short end of the stick all the time. So that's why, I think that issue 4 was so important in putting out the feelings of people who are incarcerated, and kind of and this drop before what happened with George Floyd, and to see it confirmed with what's going on in the country today, that makes people who are incarcerated feel that the publication News Inside did not forget about them, and I take a lot of pride in that.
Wow. As you should. You did a great job, Lawrence.
Thank you.
Yes, and I appreciate your trailblazing story, right? That you paved this way to get into the Marshall Project. It wasn't by just chance, You earned that. You did your not, and I don't want to speak about just your time, which we can't dismiss that by no means, but what you did while you were doing your time, and the school, everything, not just the school of the hard knocks, but the school of education, the academics that you have behind your name, your accolades. And with that, you came here and you made something like this, and allowed not only this publication to take you someplace, but you allowed it to take Donald, which is one of our comrades, and myself included. And I'm just so not only proud of you, but I'm looking forward to seeing what what else you have in store. You know, because what you did was not easy, and what you're doing is not easy. And thank you for putting food on my plate for my family. I appreciate it, brother. And you made it look easy, but I know it's hard work because the work that I'm doing, I know that it's the work that I still have to do after the program. I know that it's work, and but it's a fulfilling work, and it's a much needed work, and I applaud you for that.
And as an educator, I love that it's rooted in literacy. So in your own way, you are helping to educate. I can only imagine how hard pressed inside of prison one might be to get their hands on something new to read, just something different to stimulate your mind, some way to connect with outside, some way to feel validated in a positive way. Again, something tangible to send home or to have sent to you, like, look, mom, look, dad, look, honey, look what I'm doing. What I wrote was in there. And I think also for those of us who are outside, to be able to see, like, wow, there's a lot of smart men and women inside of prison, because that's a myth also, that everyone inside of prison is a knucklehead. And so everyone who's inside is outside. Same type of people exist, no matter what environment. So one of the things that I really, I share this with my students, by the way, just so you know, because it's a reputable source, right? It's not fake news, real news. It's also the people's voice, very similarly to Wikipedia. So we look at it like, well, why would this be any less of a reliable source than, say, the New York Times? Is it less validated because of the people who write it? So these are some of the questions. So I'm just showing you, like, the many ways that your publication is touching lives and people, not only inside of prison, but outside of prison as well. And that it's a very important, and it's not to be minimized. This is no different than the Black Star Line, than the North Star publication that Frederick Douglass started, than the Black Wall Street Times that was started by Nehemiah Frank in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is history. These are the things that when we look at primary source documents and someone wants to know, well, what was going on in 2020 inside our prisons in America, they'll say, well, we have news inside.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've ever looked at it from that lens, which as an educator, I'm very pleased with this piece of writing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And FYI, the New York Times partners with us all the time. So they publish stories that you see in News Inside and vice versa.
Yeah. Wow. How would someone get this if they have a loved one right now, anyone who's viewing who has a loved one who is incarcerated? How would they get a copy of this? Do they have to pay for it? Like, what are the parameters?
Well, Look, I'm executive assistant.
Right. Talk that talk.
Assistant director. No, what you can do is you can email me at themarshallproject.org. J Dukes, I'm sorry, JDUKES Dukes at themarshallproject.org. And I'm the one who place your loved one in that's incarcerated. I'll place them in the system on a subscription mailing list, and we'll send it out as soon as we can. I wanted to say something you said about stories. There are a plethora of stories that I have to read. I would say it's endless of the amount of material that comes to that comes to the Marshall Project that we have to go and read through, whether it's people trying to get out of prison or out of confinement, lockdown confinement within the prison, or what we're speaking about with COVID, or just speaking about the injustice that's going on in society, or just so many stories we have to read through. And a lot of them, it can be taxing at times. For me, even though I've been through this, just reading through it is it's a lot. It's heavy. It's heavy on you. And I'm not the only one that read. I read majority of them, but we also have our other staff members like Robin, people like that. They will even read through these things before sometimes that it has to reach to Lawrence, because Lawrence reads. For Lawrence, there's so many things. You know, whether he's on television programs. I mean, you can speak to that as well. Like there's a lot to run this machine. There's a lot being done.
I want to ask you a question in our last 10 minutes, shifting gears a little bit. There's a lot of conversation going on about COVID-19, as you mentioned, inside of prison, but also in our schools, and what that looks like for the reimagination of our schools. As the father of 2 school-age children, what decision have you and your wife made regarding whether they will be returning to school or continuing remotely? What are maybe perhaps some of your concerns?
We just had a conversation about that today. New York State, they're allowing some parents to opt out of, all parents to opt out of having their children go to school. They could participate with online learning the way they've been doing it without being penalized. But in the state I'm in, Connecticut, they haven't made that decision yet. As of now, it seems like our children will have to go to school. But Ronine and I would opt out of having our children go to school. And if they are forced to go to school without us opting out, we're gonna definitely challenge it to the fullest extent. We don't want our children to go to school until a vaccine comes out. While our children can learn remotely the way they have been, and it's gonna be tough on them because they want to interact with people, but I try to find ways for them to interact safely and try to find ways to entertain them the best way I can. And I'm doing that. I just made a purchase today that's crazy, crippling my pockets, but it's all for the kids, all for the kids, all for the kids. But so we're not gonna let them go to school if there isn't a vaccine, but we're just gonna go full speed ahead with the online learning and also supplement that learning with some other life skills that we can give them.
Wonderful. Just curious about that. I've kind of been asking everyone who, I'm around, just what their thoughts are, and trying not to be judgmental about it. It's a very personal decision that families have to make, to do what's best for them. But I know the National Parents Union has been very concerned about the health and safety of our children and their families and what that looks like. So just curious. But
yeah, I'm not trying to hear your kid got COVID-19, kid didn't make it, oh I'm sorry. I'm not trying to hear I'm sorry. There ain't gonna be no sorry. I'm gonna prevent that from the get-go. Exactly. My children are unique, man. They can't be replaced.
Oh, they are. Next time we have to have them one dancing. Oh, they can dance, joke, you laugh, smile. Oh, beautiful boys, beautiful boys. And I know you have a daughter too. Now let me not leave her out. I think I met her once. So beautiful children. Yes. Lawrence, thank you for being. I don't know if you and John need to kick it and talk. Like my work here is done. He has work to do, as he's mentioned.
I have work to do. Yes. Which is I'm blessed to have work to do. I'm happy to.
Right.
No, I of course I always appreciate your company. I appreciate your time. With that being said, I think that what was said here tonight was something that, of course, we needed to speak about with our children, with how we are able to impart to our children. I think we didn't touch on it like directly, but indirectly. But with what we went through, we're able to help them go through quarantine. Even our wives, I've been told a lot of times with Vivett, she'll say, "Oh, thank you for helping me get through it," because we've been so much in our space confined to such little and to do without, that we had to make up other ways to have a lot. Our perspective, as we were speaking about earlier. So I think it's always great to have a man like yourself on here that we can be able to share that with National Parents Union, with with anybody out there, would speak your truth, with to highlight the Marshall Project. I'm grateful to be able to highlight Hudson Link for helping with the education that we have, you know, for Mercy College, you know, just so many people invested in us that that's what I would like to do tonight. And that's why I did that. I would like to thank all these people, and I'm just waiting to see what the next chapter is, you know.
Okay. Well, thank you. And if anybody want to update, real live time update in our stories, they can follow me on Twitter at Law Bartley, which is at LAWBARTLEY.
Follow him, Lawrence Bartley. You heard that on Twitter at Law Bartley. The MarshallProject.org. Is that right?
Yes.
MarshallProject.org to find out what else is going on. You know, many people just have an interest in mass incarceration. It's all a buzz now, you know. And so I think that it's important that people hear authentic stories and allow the people who have lived experience to really frame the narrative and be leading and directing the conversation. That hasn't always been the case. So I thank you for picking up that mantle and being on here tonight, to both of you, to give a new face and a new look and a different perspective as to what re-entry looks like. Because that was your past. It'll be a part of your life, but it's not your everyday anymore. That was your past. And you're taking your past and helping so many people. I can't tell you how many parents contact us like, thank you, I never thought about that. Those are good tips. These guys really know what they're talking about. So, you know, thank you, Lawrence. You have a wonderful night. To all of our Give Ranina the Boys Our Best. To all of our viewers, we thank you as always for spending time with us, for sharing space with us. We look forward to being with you again on Monday at 7:30 Eastern Time with the National Parents Union presents Speak Your Truth. Until then, have a good night and be well.
And say a prayer for Jermaine Archer. He went to the board yesterday.
Yes, oh! That's right.
Yeah. That's right. All right.
Jermaine Archer. That's right.
All right.
Thank
got
you.
It. Jermaine, thank you. Good night.
Love you, brother.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
You did great. Yay!